progress.
For everyone, I'd like to remind you that the event will be started in 5 minutes, so please wait and stay on the Zoom meeting. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya. Greetings to all of us. Ladies and gentlemen, first thing first, let's praise our Father God Almighty. Because of His grace, we're able to gather today to discuss never normalized sexual harassment. Let's fight it. Before I proceed, I'd like to introduce myself first. I'm Putri Fitriani, and I'll be your MC for today's movie session. But first and foremost, good afternoon to our honorable speaker for Alsa Unplugged Volume 3 movie session, Nadia, Imani, WItadhea, and Mrs. Theresia Sri Endras Iswarini. And then our moderator for today's discussion, Queeney Fionnula Easter Sutanto. And all of our honorable participants of the movie session of Alsa Unplugged Volume 3 for today. We also would like to say thank you to Resandi Chumbatrika Partnership for sponsoring Alsa Unplugged Volume 3 for today. Ladies and gentlemen, our series of today's events include the first one is the opening, which is currently ongoing. The second one is singing Indonesia Raya and Alsa Anthem. The third one is the opening remarks by the project officer. The fourth one is the opening remarks by the Vice Director of Academic Development, Alsa Silgam. And then the discussion, which will be led by two of our most outstanding speakers for today, and followed by question and answer or Q&A session, which it should be noted that participants who have joined via Zoom may ask questions through the chat box, and participants who have joined via YouTube may ask questions through the comment box. The next one is the giving of placards to speakers and moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, let's move to our next session, which is Sing Indonesia Raya and Alsa Anthem.
Raise the spirit of young generation from different nations and different colors of mind to shadow welcoming the bright light. Justice and freedom, bring them to all the universe. Alsa, all grace be one.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, moving to the next agenda, which is the opening remarks of our Law Unplugged Volume 3 Project Officer. To Irfan Daniel Putra, the time is yours.
Oke, thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan. Alhamdulillah, praise and gratitude for the presence of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. It's because of His grace and mercy that we can attend this virtual movie session, Law Unplugged Volume 3 this afternoon. The honorable speakers, Mrs. Theresia Iswarini, Kak Nadia Imani WItadhea, Kak Prasetyo Pramudiono as Director of Alsa UGM, and also the rest of Board of Directors and local board and friends of committee and participant of movie session Law Unplugged Volume 3. Law Unplugged Volume 3 is one of the annual works program of Alsa UGM, which aim to present an innovation in delivery of legal issues to the public. This year, Alsa Unplugged Volume 3 brings up a topic of when the youth unites the nation. Within the topic, there will be a discussion regarding the influence of the youth to face the future of the nation and to take part in maintaining the unity of the country. Through this theme, we want to encourage the spirit of youth to keep innovating by continuing to explore the potential that exists within them and become a great person with a tremendous social awareness. Movie session, as one of the series of Alsa Law Unplugged Volume 3, will be one of our efforts to actualize the goal of our theme. This event carries the theme, Never Normalized Sexual Harassment, Let's Fight It. Movie sessions are held to facilitate the progress of delivering legal issues that will be discussed in the legal English discussion. Because as we all know, watching movies is one of the effective methods to learn. The film that will screen is titled Wait by RAINN, which is a short film that campaigns for the importance of awareness of the rampant sexual harassment in the community. The scope of the discussion that will be studied includes the causes of the widespread phenomenon of sexual harassment, the importance of sex education, and how to change the perspective of society towards victims of sexual harassment. Finally, on behalf of the entire Alsa Law Unplugged Volume 3 Committee, I would like to express my deepest gratitude to the both of speakers, the Alsa UGM Board of Directors, local board, and all the third parties for their help to make this event successful. I also thanks all the guests and participants who also took a part in elevating this event. Hopefully, this event can provide the benefit to all of us. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Om, Santi, 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 Om.
Thank you for the opening remarks, Irfan. The next one is the opening remarks by the Vice Director of Academic Development, Alsa UGM, on behalf of the Director, Alsa UGM. Please welcome Kak Jeremy Guntur. The time is yours.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya. May peace be upon us all. The Honorable Komisioner of Komnas Perempuan, Ibu Theresia Iswarini, the Honorable Co-Founder of HopeHelps UGM, Mbak Nadia Imani, the Honorable Moderator of this movie session, Queeney Sutanto, and to all amazing committee and participants of Alsa Law Unplugged Volume 3. Good afternoon and greeting to all of us. My name is Jeremy Abram Guntur, and I will be as the representatives of Alsa UGM would like to welcome all participants to Alsa Law Unplugged Volume 3 movie session. And on this day, we have prepared amazing movie and discussion session with the theme to Never Normalize Sexual Harassment, Let's Fight It, that will be brought by two amazing speakers, Ibu Theresia Iswarini and Mbak Nadia Imani. To conclude, we hope that this movie session could bring many benefits to all of us to understand that sexual harassment should never be normalized. Thank you and enjoy the movie session. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom. Om Santi 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 Om. Namo Buddhaya. To inspire and to aspire. Alsa, always be one.
Thank you for the opening remarks, Kak Jeremy Guntur. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will now commence to the core of today's event. But before I begin, I'll introduce our moderator for today, Queeney Sutanto. She is a student at the Faculty of Law in UGM who has many prestigious experience, such as having achieved 9th Best Overall List, 3rd Best Overall Team, and 5th Best Combined Memorials for Asia Pacific Rounds on False CJSM International Law Moot Court Competition, having researched surrounding the topics of Incoterms, letter of credit, also compensation, on Asian Law Students Association International Mediation Competition, and many more mesmerizing achievements, which I cannot mention one by one. In addition, she has also participated in several committees that are no less prestigious, such as being the staff of Ministry of External Affairs and staff of English Division on Alsa. Therefore, without further ado, let's begin. Please welcome Queeney Sutanto. The time is yours.
Thank you very much, Putri. Good evening, everyone. First, I would like to extend my gratitude to the Law Unplugged committee for giving me a chance to become the moderator for today's movie session. And also thank you again to Putri for introducing me to the participants here. Right, so before we get to know our speakers further, I would like to invite all of you here to watch a short movie titled Wait. This short movie is produced by RAINN, a national sexual assault hotline and a nonprofit organization based in the United States. This organization aims to educate and raise awareness of the people pertaining to sexual violence. So let us not wait any longer, for it is time to enjoy the movie. To the logistics team, if you can help us play the movie, please.
Hello? No, just calling about
Okay, that was a very interesting movie. And to just recap what we have watched, the RAINN movie displays a woman with bruises all over her face. And it seems like she was experiencing some sort of trauma as seen through her reactions towards the loud noises. And then I would like to highlight what the end of the movie says, that every minute counts for the victims of sexual violence to get justice. I perceive this movie to contain a powerful message in regards to sexual violence. How victims are usually unable to speak up, felt alone, in pain, and even blamed for the horrific experiences that they have gone through. These 2 to 3 minutes alone in this movie are enough to show us about the harsh reality of our current society. That a lot of people, especially women, must undergo these unfortunate events and bear the pain for most, if not the entirety of their lives. Maybe I would first like to ask all of you here about what you think about the movie. What impression did you have, and would anyone like to share? Okay, I think that is fine. If no one here would like to perhaps provide their opinion yet, that is not a problem, because I think now we can just introduce our great speakers. Here with us today is Ibu Theresia Sri Endras Iswarini. Ibu Theresia is currently a commissioner of Komnas Perempuan, a consultant for gender equality, a palladium for a forestry project held by the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, along with Rutgers Indonesia and many more. And she was also a program manager of HiVos Southeast Asia for women empowerment. Not only that, she has also advocated for the rights of women through her research and publications, such as Kekuatan Literasi, Pengalaman Perempuan di India, Indonesia, Filipina, dan Papua New Guinea, and Kepemimpinan Perempuan dalam Sistem Verifikasi Legalitas KAI. Next up, we also have our second speaker, Kak Nadia Imani WItadhea. Kak Nadia is currently the coordinator of alumni relations of Alsa local chapter Universitas Gadjah Mada, as well as the co-founder and vice director of HopeHelps Universitas Gadjah Mada. Kak Nadia has also interned in Indonesia Corruption Watch, won first place in Diponegoro Law Fair's debating competition, and also won Best Delegate for African Union Council in Alsa eFest Model United Nations. Hello, Ibu Theresia and Kak Nadia. I would like to express how glad we all are to have you both. Thank you very, very much for joining us today. How are you all today, Ibu Theresia and Kak Nadia?
Hello.
Hello, Ibu.
Yeah. Good afternoon. I'm very, very happy to meet you all here. Since I know it's not easy for students, yeah. Since this is a weekend, I think all of you actually need me time, what we call me time. But this is a good opportunity for us to share all the experience or perhaps knowledge. I believe that you all have knowledge, very deep knowledge on sexual violence. In terms of peer group, yeah, I think many youth actually have certain information, maybe through friends or through peer groups, considering that all the information of sexual violence actually gathered from youth or from friends. I think that's my first introduction from me. Greetings from Komnas Perempuan.
Thank you very much.
Back to moderator, yeah, Queeney.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Ibu Theresia. Maybe first, mau sapa Kak Nadia. Hi, Kak. How are you today?
Hello, everyone. I'm very good and very honored to be speaking today in this event. Also, hello to Ibu Theresia. I'm a huge fan.
Okay. Bye, Nadia.
Hello, Ibu. I hope the discussion today will be very enjoyable and useful for all of us. Thank you, Queenie.
Thank you very much, Ibu Theresia, for the introduction, and also Nadia. That is really great to hear, and I hope both of you will also keep on being safe during this pandemic, as I know these are very, very challenging times for all of us. So, Ibu Theresia and Nadia, I will chat along both of you for the next 45 minutes, so I hope I won't bore you. And now I think the participants can no longer wait, since they are really, really curious about your stories and opinions. So maybe just to start, I want to first ask your view on the movie we have just watched. Perhaps we can hear from Ibu Theresia first, then Nadia. So what do you think of the movie, Ibu?
My impression to that movie showed the real experience of the victim, because most of the victim actually experienced trauma that remind her to all specific things, voice, movement, related to sexual violence. And for me, that's a strong message to all the viewers, the audience, since the information of recovery system is not in place yet, particularly in Indonesia. We know that all the prevention system has already in place, but for the recovery system, we have to still need to ensure, particularly for all the institution and also for the service provider to provide it, including at the campus or at the university. I think that's the most important thing, is provide the recovery system in university, at college, campus, all the place related to youth or young people. That's my first impression. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ibu. That is very great to hear. Maybe I'll get back to that statement later on, Ibu. But first now I would like to ask Nadia, what is your take on the movie?
Okay, I'm pretty much agree with what Ibu Theresia has said before. I think it's a very good movie to spread the reality of what really happens to sexual assault victims. It carries a strong message there. And it's also a relevant condition in our country. Yeah. From my experience in handling such cases in HopeHelps UGM, usually the victims didn't get the medication that they needed the most. The victim needs immediate medical attention, and this includes careful assessment and management of any physical injuries, medical forensic examination, screening and treatment for sexually transmitted disease, including HIV, and emergency contraception methods. Such services usually provided by community health centers and general hospital. In addition to medical care, usually rape victims also require psychological intervention, and we usually call them psychological first aid, which is very essential to promote and accelerate the recovery of sexual violence victims. This service needs to be done immediately because it must be very traumatizing condition for them. So yeah, I think that's my take on this movie.
Thank you very much for that input, Nadia. I think we can note a lot of important things just from the impression Ibu Theresia and Nadia gave, that in the present case, sadly, prevention system is at place, but no recovery system yet. That's point one. And point two, we also understand that in victims, in sexual violence or harassment victims, usually it is very necessary to provide psychological first aid, medication, screening, treatment, and sometimes it may not be noted by most people. Like most people are not aware that these are actually an important step in helping these victims. So before we dive too deep into the technicalities, maybe I would just like to ask Ibu Theresia first. So Ibu, can you perhaps shed some more light on what exactly is sexual violence and harassment? What are the types and perhaps the signs as well?
Okay. I think would be good if I also start not only by definition, because I think definition is really related to the, for example, the international instrument, like Declaration on Anti-Violence Against Women, or CEDAW. CEDAW is a convention on the elimination of discrimination against women. I like to start the data that actually happened in Indonesia. And I think I already shared to the committee regarding the sexual violence from 2012 to 2020. That's according to our what we call Catahu, catatan tahunan, yearly notes of Komnas Perempuan. We see that there is a rising number of sexual violence recently, particularly in what we call online sexual violence. I think maybe we can discuss about that later, because according to our Catahu, there are 5 key trends that perhaps can be very interesting to discuss further. The first one, since we have 2020, in 2020 we have more than 299,000 data or number of violence against women, and we then analyze it into 5 key trends of violence against women. The first one, majority of violence against women reported is at personal domain. For example, violence, domestic violence, or incest. If you ever heard about incest, that's sexual violence done by the closest member of family, father or uncle or brother, even or even the grandfather. And the second key trend is dramatic rise of sexual violence with specific trends to vulnerable groups. The third key trend is cyber sexual violence. That the one I told as online sexual violence. The fourth is violence against women in the context of state domain are mostly underreported. So this is something that we need to underline, underreported, since it's not easy, particularly if the perpetrator is a public figure or the head of the institution, for example, state institution. It's really not easy. And the fifth one is limited capacity in responding cases of violence against women. That's also related to the availability of recovery system and also prevention system. This is something that needs to be underlined. And then by definition, actually, we already have violence against women based on the Article 1 Declaration on Anti-Violence Against Women. I start from that one because I think that's a general definition to portray more on sexual violence. Any act of gender-based violence that results in or is likely to result in physical, sexual, or psychological harm or suffering to women, including threats of such acts, coercion, or arbitrary deprivation of liberty, whether occurring in public or in private life. So sexual violence, it's part of the violence against women by definition. Then we, Komnas Perempuan, if I'm not mistaken, do a kind of research since 2000, if I'm not mistaken, 2001, since we found out that second number of data that already raised every year is sexual violence. Then from that start, we doing, serial research. We found out 15 kinds of violence against women, including sexual violence. Then we divide again in 2016 in nine kinds of sexual violence. There is rape, exploitation, gratification, even coercion of abortion. I don't remember all, but I think would be good if you all know there are 9 kind of sexual violence, and that's already some of already covered by the legal system through the civil system, criminal justice system, but it's not enough. Yeah. Then Komnas Perempuan raised one very urgent needs is the bill of sexual violence that already in the parliament, but that's not easy as well because in 2016, since it's already part of the initiative DPR or parliament, then it's dropped in 2020. Then in 2021, we fight again to return it back to parliament as a national priority. That's a particular issue I would like to share to you, not only by definition, but also by the reality, by the fact, by the data, and also by the progress in the parliament towards the anti-sexual violence bill.
Okay, that is actually, even for me, Ibu, that's a new knowledge, Ibu. The fact that there's actually so many types of sexual violence that all of us are actually unaware of. That there are 9 types, as you mentioned there, Ibu. There's like coercion of abortion, exploitation, and rape. And I think this is a really, really great start so that people first understand the framework or the ground or the foundation of sexual violence. So now moving on to Nadia, maybe. Why do you think these cases of sexual violence and harassment happens at such a high rate? And the fact that it has become a common occurrence really worries me. So what do you think of that?
Okay. I think when we are talking about sexual violence, a lot of people tend to be more focused on the word sex instead of the word violence. When sometimes sexual violence is really not about the sex, it's about the power and aggression and manipulation. It's an abuse of power problem. And high rates of sexual violence can be caused by many things. The first one may because of people living in patriarchal culture, so it's easy to stigmatize victims of sexual violence. And the second one is the absence of regulation and law to prevent and to help the victims itself. And the third one is the ignorance of society, because a lot of people is still trying to normalize it. They thought that the perpetrators did is not a crime, such as sexist expression, invitation to have sex, and verbal harassment, such as whistling, and many more. And because a lot of people normalize this behavior, the victims tend to question themselves, like, am I being too much? Am I just being sensitive? And many more expression. Noting that there are many factors that contribute to the occurrence of sexual violence, it is important to understand that the perpetrators are the only one who is responsible for the sexual violence happening. It has nothing to do with the victim's condition, what are they wearing at the moment, where are they, who are they with, and many more. It has nothing to do with that. The sexual harassment is fully the responsibility of the perpetrators. And the perpetrators usually have a strong sense of entitlement and control to commit such acts of sexual violence. This allows them to treat the targeted victim with no respect at all. And sexual harassment can be both happen to men and women, but speaking from the data and statistic, and also from Catahu Komnas Perempuan, ya Ibu, most of the victims are women. So it's also very important to look at other factors that contribute to sexual violence occurring, such as the patriarchal culture and that are used to justify or excuse sexual violence to women, and also gender-based stereotypes that reinforce inequality within gender. So yeah, I think it's mainly because the patriarchal society, lack of education, and also lack of protection for women.
Okay, Kak. So if I gather you correctly, Kak, this practically, these high cases happens due to a lot of factors in which a lot of these victims are usually unable to a certain way perhaps report due to the victim blaming happening and the patriarchal society added by the lack of education. It seems like people do not really know even when they're in a position of being quote unquote sexually abused. And with this in mind, Ibu Theresia and Nadia, how have the laws helped in dealing with these cases of sexual violence and harassment in the world? Or perhaps if you think it has not helped enough, feel free to also let us know what you think. Maybe we can start from Ibu Theresia and then Nadia can continue.
I could start from Nadia.
Sure. That's also possible. Feel free.
We can,
Ping pong, eh?
yeah.
Okay, we'll do.
Because I like to also underline what Nadia say about the power and patriarchal culture. Okay.
Maybe Nadia, the floor is yours.
Okay, so I think based on my experience, like Ibu Theresia can do some more adding to this. From my experience handling cases in HopeHelps and like campus-based organization, the law has not helped enough because more because of the what's so-called aparat penegak hukum, because they are actually they are lacking of the education and also the knowledge to handle the victims of the sexual harassment or the other victims, because they are lacking of facilities, they are lacking of perspective, and they are lacking of the way to handle them. And it traumatized the victim so much, because like they feel like they don't have safe place to go, or they feel like they don't have anywhere to go, because mostly when they try to report the case or when they trying to seek out help from the authorities, they usually get a judgmental response, or they usually get a very discriminative and also what can I say? It's a very mean response to be given from the aparat penegak hukum. And I think that's my take on the law itself, because it's still not implementing what is written in the undang-undang, and it's not implementing what it's really needed by the victim the most.
I see that. So it's more or less also the fact that these judgmental reactions from people around us some sort of worsens the fact that not only the law is not quote unquote enough, but these judgments thrown at the victims are practically what contributed most to their trauma. Ya kan, gitu ya.
Yes.
So maybe Bu Theresia, you would want to comment on that, Ibu?
Yeah, this is something that I call it a patriarchal culture. Yeah, Nadia also mentioned about the patriarchal culture. We also talk about the power. I totally agree what Nadia mentioned about the power, because sometimes if we look at the way, for example, the judgmental speaking by the aparat penegak hukum, by the police, for example, that's always referred to the clothes. Yeah, for example, that's one example. If you are raped by someone, the first question comes to the victim, comes to you always. Why? How about the environmental when you walk, for example, at night? Are you going alone, or who accompany you? That's the first one. What kind of clothes you wear? That's also another following question. That's actually, we call it as judgmental question, that already flagging also to the Supreme Court. If the judge comes to examine the victims or the women conflict on the law, they cannot allow to questioning that question, because that question is what we call patriarchal questions. Unfortunately, those questions always comes from the police. The police is the first step, the first step. If we go to the legal system, we always go to the police. And police always use criminal code, KUHP, and we always analyze the criminal code by, if you ever heard about feminist legal theory, from the substance level, structural level, and also culture of law level. We portray that one, that's triangle. I always use that as a triangle. If you look at the criminal code, Indonesian criminal code, and we analyze with that three elements of feminist legal theory, we found out that in terms of substance level, various types of sexual violence sometimes are not recognized fully by the Indonesian law. Example, never no article or clause on, for example, this is a very simple one, sexual harassment. Yeah, that's a very simple one. And sexual harassment always happen, and it seems normal. Yeah, seems normal. That's example. Marital rape. It's not recognized by our criminal code, but recognized by our Undang-Undang Law Number 23, year 2024. We call it Undang-Undang Penghapusan Kekerasan dalam Rumah Tangga, Law on Domestic Violence. We use the term sexual violence, not marital rape. In fact, there is a rape done by husband to wife. And this is a very, sensitive, since we are in a very quote unquote religious community or religious society. And from the substance level, we also know that criminal code only regulates sexual violence in the context of rape, while the formulation is not able to provide protection to women victims. I put it, for that example, sexual harassment. I also put the sexual slavery that's already covered by TPPO. It's Undang-Undang Pemberantasan Tindak Pidana Perdagangan Orang. That's TPPO. Trafficking. The term in English is trafficking. Law on trafficking. The third one, in the level of substance, we also have a very narrow definition on sexual. Doesn't accommodate the victim's interests from the substance level. Yeah. From the structural level, Nadia also already mentioned, we have a very limited, or we have a lacking of sexual or service providers, even from the police office to the, that's very limited. Yeah. Even in university, also very limited in campus. Even perhaps the authority of the university also doesn't really aware of sexual violence. From the structural level, this is only example, maybe you can find out the other one. Small number of women police dedicated to the Women and Child Complaint Unit. There is UPPA. If you go to the police office, you will know UPPA, Unit Pengaduan Perempuan dan Anak. That's Women and Child Complaint Unit. Not all police office have UPPA, with proper facilities and budget. For example, if you go to Eastern Indonesia, they only have maybe one UPPA in capital city. Yeah? In Sumatra, only a few big cities have UPPA. And lack of gender perspective, that's also our concern. Even the victim perspective contribute to re-victimization. Limited integrated services in handling women victims, that interrelated with criminal justice system. This is something that Komnas Perempuan also advocate at the moment. Since 2000 till now, we call it SPPT PKKTP, Sistem Peradilan Pidana Terpadu, integrated criminal justice system in handling violence against women cases. Yeah. From the level of culture of law, we know that police officers still internalize the patriarchy's perspective, or we call it morality perspective. Yeah, always refer if you are a sexual or sex workers, if you are raped, the first question is if your profession as a sex workers, then it's normal if you are violated sexually. That's always like that the perspective. And this perspective tends to blame the victim during investigation, during persecution, and adjudicate by the court. Yeah, this is something that we can discuss more since you are all of you, I think, law students. Perhaps you can have interest to look at closely how the court, how the judge, how the police officer, how the prosecutor actually handle the case of sexual violence. That's very interesting since they use perspective, their own perspective, that not really gender-based perspective. Yeah. I think that's all, Queenie.
Okay, thank you, Ibu and Nadia. There was a very, very extensive answer, and I think it actually hits a couple of other points that I would just like to note and emphasize for our participants today. That first of all, in regards to laws, especially in Indonesia, it can be said that it is not yet adequate because the laws are not within the victim's interests. That the narrow definition of sexual violence added by many unrecognized forms of sexual harassment and sexual violence in Indonesian laws has somewhat failed to stop these cases from skyrocketing every day. And I think the judgment, as Nadia mentioned, by people, and also Ibu Theresia noted, the lack of gender and victim perspective have somewhat made these victims' lives very much harder than it already is. So with that, I think, Ibu, I would just like to ask about what are the forms of protection that is available for these victims, to your knowledge, especially maybe in your perspective as the representative of Komnas Perempuan juga boleh, Bu.
Yeah, one of the issue we underline from the picture from the glass of Komnas Perempuan is recovery system. Yeah, if you look at the first the movie Wait mentioned about the trauma, how the trauma actually handled only by her. Yeah. She went to the hospitals, and at the time, maybe I think this is the first one. She always, when she is in waiting moment, she's always reminded to that trauma. In Indonesia, if you go to the, for example, police office. The police office will always refer to the hospital if there is a victim of violence, a victim of sexual violence, for example, rape. Unfortunately, not all the police office have that such of referring. Not all directly refer to hospitals if they think that there is no very important or doesn't show the bruise, for example, bruises, or it's not really obvious, not appears in your body. And second, if that's happened among the couple, they always think that, oh, this is a private matter, so you have to finish it by yourself. That's in remote area, it's always like that. Or you can finish it using the adat, using the what we call not a tradition, but this is kind of norm, something like that, yeah. And then in the hospitals, if you need a visum, there is a visum et repertum and also visum et psychiatrum. The police or the hospital always provide only visum et repertum. Repertum meaning that they always examine your body, your if there is injured or there is something in your vagina, then they will examine the what we call luka in English, luka, and then they will issue one document or letter goes to the police, yeah, as evidence in the court. But there is no recovery system during the process of investigation. This is something that we need to underline, since Komnas Perempuan look at all the process from the first steps in the investigation process, goes to the hospitals, back again to the police office, go to the prosecutors, kejaksaan, then go to the court. Yeah, lack of recovery system. That's why through SPPT PKKTP, through integrated criminal justice system in handling violence against women cases, we always remind both of aparat penegak hukum, police, prosecutor, and judge that they need to provide a recovery system to help the victims or the survivors. And we always also remind the service providers arranged by the government, like P2TP2A, if you ever heard about this. P2TP2A is kind of a small unit at the community level, coordinated by Dinas Pemberdayaan Perempuan, Women Empowerment Bureau, or agency at the local level, provincial or district level. And also if national, they are under coordination of Ministry of Women Empowerment and Child Protection. Yeah. So both of APH, Aparat Penegak Hukum, and service provider, that's also cross agencies and also ministries, they need to coordinate each other, communicate each other to help victims. Because if victims have flagging the urgency of recovery system, the service provider at the local level should help police officer in providing recovery system. Unfortunately, I like to underline also the condition of regional policies on integrated services for women victims of violence against women. Since this is already, Komnas Perempuan already do a research also in 2020, we found out that from 285 policies, local policies, we found out only 7% provide visum free of charge. Yeah, this is something that also needs to be underlined by us, since most of the survivor, all the victims actually have a problem on poverty. Yeah, most of the women have no job. They are mostly sometimes most of them are the ibu rumah tangga, the housewife, or they are have a very small wage, but unfortunately they have to pay the visum. Yeah, and only less than 30% rumah aman, safe house in Indonesia. That's also very very small if we compare to number of victims in Indonesia and number of cases, as I mentioned before. And also sometimes the safe house has a very limited standard operational procedure. Yeah, the ideal standard operational procedure. And only 30% of service provider arranged by government and also civil society provide a recovery system in that safe house or in their transit house. Sometimes the Polda, the office, police office at the capital city, they provide transit house for the victims. But unfortunately, sometimes it's not really effectively used by the victim. Yeah, and more than 90% actually ignore on the what we call special needs of, for example, disability. People, disabled person sometimes have a very difficult situation in arranging their case in the police officers, particularly for the what we call mental disabled person or psychosocial disabled person. Yeah. For example, who has schizophrenia. Sometimes they are all the testimony of them on the sexual violence. Sometimes it's always considered as hallucination. This is something that needs to be flagged by us, because as a police officer, they have to, receive all the report gathered from the community, from the society. That's the rights that need to be fulfilled by the police officer to receive and also process all the reports, including by the disabled person. This condition of regional policies contribute to the big picture of sex or the recovery system in Indonesia, yeah, particularly for violence against women. That's why Komnas Perempuan always, have a very intensive discussion with local government and also local aparat penegak hukum to consider a recovery system during the process of legal process. Because otherwise, if they don't, if the victims or survivor cannot answer all the question in the context of legal process, it makes the aparat penegak hukum, prosecutor, police, court, judge also cannot actually handle or finish the case properly. Yeah, this is something that need to be flagged by us in terms of the what we call recovery system. Back to you, Queenie.
Yes, okay, Ibu. I think that was something that I also agree with you in regards to how disabled people are not really accommodated to. And sometimes I think this has to be paid more attention. And again, the emphasis on the word recovery system, not only preventive measures, but recovery measures for the victim are not less important. So since our time is a little bit drawing near, maybe I would just like to ask one final two questions. And I would like to ask Nadia for this one. As the co-founder of HopeHelps, I believe HopeHelps aims to help victims of sexual violence. And in relation to that, in your experience, how can we create a safe space for these victims? Because before I also remember you saying the word, we should create safe spaces for sexual violence victims. Must it begin in our families, social circles, workplaces? What do you think?
Okay, thank you, Queenie, for the question. I think that gender-based sexual violence in Indonesia is closely related to social construction problem, mainly due to the minimal involvement of men in prevention and treatment efforts. Moreover, when we are talking about sexual violence, the focus is still on the involvement of the majority of the women, ignoring the root causes of the problem, which is gender norms or relation between men and women. So the baby steps that we can do to create a safe place is, the first one is to do not see women as inferior to men. it is not only done by men, but sometimes there are also girls who see women as inferior to men because they have this what's so-called internalized misogynistic inside them. And the second one is when we are at home, the men should learn to be involved in doing domestic work, not only the women. And the next is to start to inviting friends or our colleagues and our family to apply the gender equality wherever they are, both men and women. And furthermore, we can participate in joining the campaign and the movement to prevent gender-based violence. And like in our universities, there is quite a lot of them, so maybe we can start to participating in them and like put our eyes more on them. And in today's 4.0 era, both men and women can also use various media, which is social media, of course, to promote the importance of understanding patriarchal culture and misogynistic behavior, which turns out to have many disadvantages for women. In addition, men can also participate in promoting information about kekerasan berbasis gender that occurs through various social media that they have. And the next one is to support the ratification of RUU PKS, which now has changed to RUU TPKS. And the next one is, if you know a case of violence that happens around you, do not hesitate to help the victim and support the victim to report it to the authority. Because by supporting the victims, now is very important to them, because as long as there is no legal protection in Indonesia to do a recovery, as Bu Theresia said, what we should do is provide a safe and comfortable space for victims and survivors by providing a support system such as listening to the victims, providing protection, providing peace of mind, meeting their practical need, connecting with social research, and providing information. Like just help them out, listen to them, and don't be judgmental. And I think we should all agree that victim blaming is not tolerable, because victim blaming is mainly happen anytime someone says or implies that a sexual assault is the victim's fault. And victim blaming happens in many ways and can be defined as any assumption that a victim is responsible for the crimes committed against them based on the way she behaves, dresses, or lives. We should stop asking questions such as, what were you wearing at the moment? You might send mixed message, you might enjoy too, and so on. This culture of victim blaming might lead to a lot more sexual violence, since people is normalizing this act, and this prevent us from getting the safe place that we all need. And there is a study that proves that sometimes people do victim blaming to help themselves feel better. For example, like we see this in other crimes too. It's not just sexual assault. For example, if your neighbor house is kemalingan or robbed, you might feel better if you know that they had left the garage door unlocked, or that they associated with some not so good people and they accidentally turn off the alarm. It may help you continue believing that the world is safe and you aren't likely to become the victim of some kind of crime. And this behavior creates a culture where we discredit sexual violence by blaming the victim. It is one of the factors that makes us don't hold perpetrators accountable for their behavior, and therefore encourage and support further acts of sexual violence in no such a safe place. And we should know that to be able to tell a story about the sexual violence that has just happened to you is very hard and takes a lot of courage to do, because they are currently facing unstable mental condition and a lot of pressure. So the least thing we can do is to help them finding their peace of mind and to create a safe space around us. I give back the time to Queenie.
Thank you very much, Ka. I think that sends also a very powerful message coupled with what Ibu Theresia mentioned, that actually what you have just told all of us is not only how to create a safe place, but also what youths, generasi muda seperti kita, what can we do in order to help the people around us. So seeing that the end of our chat is unfortunately drawing near, I just want to ask if there are anything that Ibu Theresia and Nadia would like to say to our participants as a closing remark. And it's free. You can start from Ibu Theresia or Nadia.
Okay, I like to start from the closest or the near environmental of us. For you is campus or university, would be good if your university, your faculty has that kind, what we call SOP, standard operational procedure or mechanism to handling and also to provide recovery system toward the victim, which is actually a student of university or your faculty. That's the first aid, help the victims around campus or university. And second, if you have an opportunity to also doing what we call prevention, doing campaign, discussion, small discussion about, for example, dating rape, for example. I think that would be very interesting for all the youth or young students here, because that's the most striking issue as well. And you probably know about this kind of dating rape or dating violence, dating sexual violence. That's something that you can do around campus or university, and it helps you know each other if there is someone actually are the victim, but she or he cannot express herself or himself in experience this kind of sexual violence. So use, I call it peer group, peer group in handling violence against women or sexual violence happens in university or in campus.
Thank you very much, Ibu. Maybe on to Nadia. Any closing remarks?
Okay, maybe I would like to underline that the only person responsible for committing sexual assault is the perpetrator, but all of us have the ability to look out for each other's safety. Anyone can help prevent sexual violence, whether it's as simple as giving someone a ride home from a party or directly confronting the person who is engaging in threatening behavior. Like, we should not normalize any kind of sexual harassment, no matter how small it might be, because these small actions can lead to something bigger, worse, and dangerous to our society. So please know that every small step that we take to prevent, to advocate, and to create a safe space is really matters. So don't stop taking those small steps and helps others who are in need. And together we can really create a safe space, even if it still take a long way down, but I'm sure we will get there. And I would like to address that we should actively conduct campaigns related to sexual violence education, specifically on campus, and help your friends who are a victim by reporting to the closest party. For example, at UGM, there is the peer group, which Bu Theresia said before, called HopeHelps UGM, where you can report via the hotline provided. Later, the report will be proceeded by HopeHelps, and we will help the victim to reach access to the most suitable assistance. We also have several discussions, such as what Bu Theresia have said, the dating violence. We just done it today, the webinar about the dating rap and dating violence, and I think it will help us a lot to know more about what is sexual violence and how to prevent it. I think it's all from me, Queenie.
Thank you very much, Ibu Theresia and Nadia. Those are very, very important things that we can highlight. And I will conclude about what we have been saying so that the participants can just really ingrain this and remember the points. However, since I think now I have asked both of you enough questions, the participants would like to have the chance to get to know both of you too. So now I open the Q&A session. And for those of you who wish to ask Ibu Theresia and Nadia questions, please type in the word permission in the chat box, and I will read out your questions for you. Once again, thank you very much for your openness and insights, Ibu Theresia and Nadia. You have educated all of us here on the importance of gender equality and how serious these cases of sexual violence are, and what we can do to prevent and mitigate such incidents from occurring again. So I think, yes, at the moment, I'm still waiting for the questions. Nadia and Ibu Theresia.
Hello, can I ask a question, please?
Yes, my apologies. Oh, hello. Yes, Fazahra. Please do. The floor is
Okay. Oh, hello, am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank both the speakers for the very extensive explanation about the topic. And I'm sorry because I cannot turn my camera on at the moment due to my signal that is very bad. But I'd like to ask a question to both the speakers, actually. So what do you think is the first right thing to do when we encounter someone close who's sexually violated, but at the same time we don't want to blatantly approach them due to how it's a very sensitive topic to just be brought up and asked casually, right? So, yeah, maybe that's my question. What's the best first approach to at least let them know that they're not alone? And yeah, that's for me. Thank you very much, Queenie, Nadia, and Theresia.
Yes, so I think I give the floor back to the speakers. Feel free to start either from Ibu Theresia or Nadia. What can we do for these victims in the case where we're maybe scared to approach them, but because it's a sensitive topic?
Maybe I'd like to start first. Yeah, the first one, if she is victims of rape, the first action is to approach her and bring her directly to the police office. It's, the sperm sometimes become an evidence, evidence that need to be taken by the police officer, that's why they need clothes by the victims' clothes, all the things around the victims or survivors. And the important thing also why the victims cannot allow to take a bath, because because this is about the evidence, if you need a visum, a document of visum for the legal process, the hospitals will examine all the area of vagina and look at what we call luka, the injured things, measure it, counting the injured things, the bruises, all the things. So bring her to the police first, and the police will refer her to the hospital. But if she is the level, it's not really serious at the first step, for example, pelecehan sexual harassment. Sometimes victims are freezing, she cannot directly yell or speak louder to the perpetrator. Then she will keep quiet for maybe a week or maybe 3 days. Then you need to approach her. You need to ask her, not directly ask what happened, but if there is something I can do, since I look at you keep quiet, for example, or lock you down in the room alone. So that's serious things that we can approach her. That's something we can do, or we can also flagging that kind of symptom to their family, because this is important also to approach their family. Maybe they need their mother or someone closest to her, and able to approach her rather than approached by friends, because sometimes there is some stigma as well, that if I talk to friends, the friends will gossiping to other friends, or make a fake information about that. So I think that's the first step you can take at the moment. And believe me that every victim actually needs someone, even if we just keep quiet, sit behind or sit nearby the victims or survivor, she will be very appreciated. I think that's my response to Zahra. Yeah. Back to Queen.
Maybe Nadia, Imani, would you like to add anything?
Okay, so for Farah, the previous freezing condition that Theresia has said is called tonic immobility, which causes the victim sometimes cannot talk, cannot think, or cannot do anything for a week or even a month because of the condition that she's been struggling to. And what we can do to reach them out is I quoted what Theresia has said. We cannot be judgmental. We have to listen to them and stating out that we are here to help them even when they feel like they don't need any help. And the first thing that we can do besides listening to their story is making sure what they really want, because all of the victims wants different things. Like some victims want the perpetrators to be to be put in jail or to get social punishment or to speak up on the internet or anything, but the other victims just want peace, or they have forgive the perpetrators and they just want the psychological treatment or anything. So it's best for us to talk to them and ask them what do they need at the moment, because don't let our willing to help melangkahi what they needed the most, because sometimes a lot of pendamping for sexual harassment is wanting to punish the perpetrator so bad that they forgot to do a recovery for the victims, and we cannot let that happen, because the mental health and the stable mental condition of the victims is what we prioritize the most. And what can we do to help them is to help them think clearly and to mitigate any risk that can happen in the further action that they take. So the first thing that we have to do when we trying to reach them out is make sure that we are open to any kind of discussion, and we are open to any kind of possibilities that they might take, because sometimes the victims hesitate to talk to us or telling us what really happens, because it feels humiliating for them to have to through such a phase. So it's important to let them know that we are not close-minded people that will judge them on what they wear or what they do at the moment, or who are they with, and so on and so on. So what I underline is to be open, don't be judgmental, and make sure that we are here for them.
Thank you very much, Ibu Theresia and Nadia. So maybe for Zahra, what we can sort of conclude here is that standing by the victims, even by not saying anything, just being by their side can greatly help, showing them that you're there for the support, and just by being trustworthy and open-minded in general can be very much helpful to these victims. And I hope that answers your question. And I think we have two more questions, Ibu, at the moment. One from Arifitra Miftahuda Rambe. I think we can call him Huda. Huda asked, how do we explain the harms of locker room talks? And how do we deal with it? Because I think it is a very prevalent issue that tends to get overlooked by our society, especially Indonesian men. Maybe Ibu Theresia can answer first, then as usual, continued by Nadia.
I try to understand locker room talks, because I just I heard this one, the first one. I thank you for that term, locker room talks, talk which can be expected to be communicated between members and which is not open to those outside the group. That's the definition. I got it from Google. So this is something we need to divide or to consider differentiate between advocacy and counseling. This is something I try to refer, For the counseling, we cannot actually express all the things raised by the victim in small groups because that remains secret. Remains secret. I think there is something like an agreement between the groups also to only talk among the members. Unless the victims or survivor says, "This is my time. That I'm ready to let the society or side the groups understand or know my issue." So permission from the victim is the most important thing. That's counseling. For the agencies, since the beginning, actually, we sometimes, if we look at all the campaign of the sexual violence, we never use the real name of the victims. We always use initial. That's also to prevent what we call harmful, on the locker room talks, because advocacy needs something to be to disclose to the society, to the community, but we also have what we call ethical code to protect the victim, since sometimes she or he never ready to let the society understand what he or she experiences. So it is something that we can agree each other between the victims and also survivors, since we also have perspective of victims. We always put victims as our priority, not our needs, not our matter, but that's more merely based on the victims or survivor perspective and needs. This is something that we can underline and put it as agreement. Let the locker room talks become more ethical, both for victims and also for the one or those who help the victims. I think hopefully that's not a different or wrong perception from me.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Right. How about Nadia? Anything to add, Kak?
Okay, so there might be some different like definition from the way I and Bu Theresia will say it. From my point of view, locker room talk is referring to boys talk in gender segregated locker rooms, such as those in school and gyms, where men talk about women in such a degrading way, it implies an exclusionist environment which women cannot enter, where men talk about women in whatever degrading manner they wish to. However, in the large sense of term, locker room talk refers to any conversation men have with fellow men space with which doesn't include women, and necessarily use it for a sexist lens to see women, call it maybe a boys club or a locker room or even a WhatsApp group which have the same result. And my take on that is, I think it's very harmful to have such a conversation, because when men in a group say something problematic about women or discuss doing something inappropriate, they realize that it is acceptable among their peers. Everyone laughs with them, and it encourages that sexism or that bad behavior. Men feel like a champion for having enough power to degrade women, and I think it's like melanggengkan the culture of patriarchy, and I think it is obviously harmful because it propagates rape culture and takes away a woman's right to their own body, its image, and who it's shared with. And actually, it happens a lot in our society, in college, in school. I kind of experienced that a lot because a lot of men doing it in our surroundings. And I think how to deal with it is not to be become quiet of it. When you see one, like when you are one of the guys, or like when your friends in one peer group does that, I think we should all agree that we should try to speak up, because if we're starting to normalizing the bad locker room talks or whatsoever, we are one of the people who like perpetuates the rape culture. And I think it's very harmful, because it's like letting your friends talking bad and degrading women in some way and not being able to do anything about that. And I think we should not normalize that. So I think the only right thing to do is to speak up and trying to make a change, even if it's a small change. I think we can all agree that even the baby steps matter. So I think when one of your friend does that, you should tell them to stop, or you should tell them that the harmful effect that it might cause.
Thank you very much, Ibu Theresia and Nadia. And that was the answer, Arif Fitra Miftahuda Rambe, and I hope that answers your question. So I think now we have just one last question at the moment from Adam Purnama. Adam asked that the recent news stated that Indonesian government are revising the draft of anti-sexual harassment bill. Do you think there were any specific reasons on why it was changed? Are there any effects on the newest draft?
May I comment on this?
Yes, please do, Ibu.
Yeah, the draft is now in the parliament. We are advocating to be what we call initiative DPR, so parliament initiative, because there are two, initiative of executive or initiative of parliament, initiative of DPR. So now they are looking at all the draft, discussing, receiving all the inputs from civil society and also national human rights institutions such as Komnas Perempuan. Now, as far as I understand, they are still discussing the draft. I don't know whether they will revise or not, but there's some issue that need to be harmonized, quote unquote, harmonized with other regulation or law. For example, at the moment, at the same time, actually, we also have RUU KUHP. That's also still in discussion between executive and also legislative. In that RUU or a bill of KUHP, talking also about some definition of sexual violence. So they are trying to harmonize each other. Otherwise, this is can be a bit difficult, for the executor, for example, police officer or prosecutor or judge, to do that, since KUHP become our what we call umbrella regulation or umbrella law. So that's why I think I cannot say more than that, since I don't know whether it's already revised or already changed or not. But Komnas Perempuan still keep force, that's not a right term, still advocating the bill, and we also doing like a lobby, some lobbies and also campaign. In November 2021, we will doing a campaign 16 Hari Anti Kekerasan, 16 days of anti-violence against women, that also you actually can also involve in this campaign. Start in 16, I think, no, not 16, 24th of November until, if I'm not mistaken, until 18 of December. or 10 of December. I don't remember exactly, but you can involve in 16 days of anti-violence against women campaign, because I think would be good if youth or many universities or many young people doing a campaign on anti-violence against on anti-sexual violence, and also raise the issue of violence against women in general. I think that's all, yeah, because I cannot say that Parliament has already revised since they are still discussing in the Parliament.
Nadia, would you like to add anything on that?
Okay, so the question is, do you think it has any specific reason why it is changed? I personally don't know, because there's something that the information is not really accessible on why the regulation changed and whatsoever. But the effect that happened to the newest draft, on what I can highlight as the first one is, maybe Bu Theresia can correct me too if I'm wrong, but I noticed that the 9 form of sexual assault has changed into only 5, which is erasing the perkosaan, pemaksaan perkawinan, pemaksaan pelacuran, pemaksaan aborsi, penyiksaan seksual, dan perbudakan seksual. Which the Badan Legislative said it's because it's kind of redundant and repetitive, because it's already been regulated in another undang-undang. But I still think that it still need to be add on the new draft, because I think it's not enough if it's only regulated by the previous undang-undang. And the next one is, I noticed that the subbab about jaminan hak, pemulihan, and perlindungan korban kekerasan seksual is also in absence, because on the previous draft, when the name is still RUU PKS, there is a subbab about that provides recovery for the victims. And on the newest draft, which is RUU TPKS, I don't see any of it. But again, I still don't know. The reasoning behind it. I hope that it can be better on the next draft. And the next is, I think there is an absence for regulation about gender-based violence online, because I think we can all agree that on this pandemic era, there is a lot of KBGO happening around us, and I think we need to put a serious take on that, because the Undang-Undang Aquo, which is UU ITE, I think it is very not enough, because it doesn't provide the regulation that helps the victims feel safe and etc. And the first one is the next one is, I noticed that there is an absence for pemberatan hukuman bagi pelaku kekerasan seksual, which is coming from tokoh agama or tokoh adat or tokoh masyarakat and pejabat. I think we should put the pressure more on them, because they should be the one who is protecting us. And I think when they are doing the sexual harassment or any kinds of violence, they should be punished more, because it is their job to make us feel safe. And when they did that, they makes us feel less safe and uncomfortable. And I think I noticed that there's also an absence for the perlindungan for korban with disability, because I think they are dealing with a lot of more pressure from the relasi kuasa, and I think they're more on the fragile situation, which we have to protect them more. So I hope Bu Theresia can also correct me on this one, and I hope the draft will also change, become the better one, and making us feel safe with the newest draft, because I noticed that there are people in social media or even in the streets, or maybe in many movement and activism, they're kind of feel like the newest draft isn't really giving protection and the recovery that the victim needed the most.
Thank you very much, Ibu Theresia and Nadia, for the very, very extensive answers. And to Adam Purnama, I really hope that this answers your question. And since
Can I
our
give
time, yes,
short
please.
comment? Yeah, short comment to Nadia, yeah, because I heard about that as well. The absence of recovery system, also cyber sex violence or disability process. This is not easy as well, since our society actually, there are some groups doesn't really agree with the bill, yeah, because they think it will perpetuate the sexual things, something what we call misconception against the sexual violence bill, anti-sexual violence bill. So that's why, to some extent, Komnas Perempuan tried to work very careful on this, because the parliament itself, they are now divided into some of, I call it a fraction, groups, small groups that have their own perspective on that. So that's why Komnas Perempuan still do a lobby to make it more solid. And since the political agreement sometimes beyond the legal things, I think the role of Komnas Perempuan is to make sure that all the ideal things already done by Komnas Perempuan since 2000, because most of the naskah academies and also substance of draft or the bill coming from all the research since 2001. That's why we are very careful on that to ensure that the parliament doesn't do a very, I call it a maneuver, yeah. But the other things, if there is a very substantial absence from the bill due by the parliament, we will doing rally advocacy to ensure that pemberatan and also recovery system, disability process, disability focus, and also cyber violence will also covered by the bill. But of course, we need your solidarity. We'll need your involvement, particularly from the university. I think would be good if Gajah Mada, UGM, doing like a big consolidation with other BEM from other university, and make the big campaign on how to ensure the bill will not change by the parliament. I think that's my comment, yeah. But thank you, Nadia, for your information, yeah.
Yes, Ibu. Actually, like the movement is still going on. Like we are trying to make kajian, so we understand that it must be very hard to make everyone agrees on the bill. So we really appreciate the work that Komnas Perempuan has been done, and we hopefully that this bill will be the safest regulation for all of us.
Yeah, let me know if UGM can do big consolidation with other BEM, then we can, make a big campaign on that.
I will.
Yeah.
Sip.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ibu Theresia and Nadia. Since it marks the end of our Q&A session, unfortunately, although I believe me and all of the participants here would like to chat with Ibu Theresia and Nadia more. It has to stop here for today. So thank you very much again and again for the education, for the insights, and it was truly an honor to have both of you here today. Thank you as well to the participants for your enthusiasm and attention towards our topic today. So to close, I would just like to highlight several aspects. First, we should never normalize sexual harassment or violence. And the fact that our current laws are not yet enough to accommodate the victims, including those who are experiencing disabilities, it brings the urgency for all of us to support one another during these times. and the fact that there are preventive systems but not recovery systems in place yet should be an agenda for further development of our nation's laws. And we must also be wary of cyber sexual violence, especially during this digital era and undergoing amidst this COVID-19 pandemic. And lastly, be open and supportive. Do not internalize misogyny and patriarchal culture, because sometimes women are also the ones who some sort of assist in, sadly, the trauma of victims, because with the gossips, judgment, victim blaming, and many more, this is also something we all should take note of to not ever do. And the point here today is so that everyone will always try their best to be there for the people around them and open our hearts and minds that people, victims of sexual harassment and violence, are actually the ones who need help. And it is never their fault, but it has always been the perpetrator's fault and conduct to be responsible of. So final words from me to any of you undergoing sexual harassment or violence: do not be afraid to reach out and report and talk to someone about it. Thank you, everyone. I wish all of you here will remain safe and healthy during these times. Let's educate ourselves and support one another. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Om, Santi, Santi, Om. Namo Buddhaya. Salam kebajikan bagi kita semua. And I'll put the floor back to Putri. Ibu Theresia mau ngomong?
No, I just want to say thank you for this opportunity to meet you all, and greetings again from Komnas Perempuan.
Thank you, Ibu. It's an honor to. Thank you, Kak Nadia juga. Aku pamit undur diri. Please, Putri, the floor is yours. Thank you very much, everyone.
All right, thank you so much, Queenie. Let's let our discussion for today, which is so interesting and attractively. And of course, we'd like to say thank you to our most outstanding speakers, Nadia, Imani, and Mrs. Theresia Iswarini. Thank you so much. Thank you to the speakers and participants for the comprehensive and informative discussion for today. And as a token of our appreciation, we'd like to symbolically hand over placards and certificates to our moderator and speaker, which will be given by the director of Alsa, Kak Prasetyo Pramudiono. Therefore, I'd like to remind to all of the speakers to keep the camera on for the documentation. For the first certificate and placard, would like to give to Mrs. Theresia Iswarini. All right. And Kadion, I'd like to invite you to reactivate your cameras. Thank you. To Kadion, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Master of Ceremony. Good afternoon, Ms. Theresia, Ibu Tera. Thank you for being willing to attend in today's event. It was very insightful and enlightening us about this issue. Hopefully, it will be useful and memorable for all of the participants. Once again, thank you very much, Ibu Theresia.
All right, thank you. And then now the committee will take a picture. To PDD committee, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Master of Ceremony. I will count down from 3, 2, 1. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mrs. Theresia. Thank you. And
Thank you, Mas Diono, ya.
Ya, sama-sama, Bu.
All right, next, would like to give a placard and certificate to Nadia, Imani, WItadhea. To Nadia, Imani, and Kak Jeremy Guntur as Vice Director of Academic Development, I'd like to invite you to activate your cameras.
Okay, thank you, Master of Ceremony. For the second token of appreciation, I would like to give our utmost gratitude to second honorable speaker, which is Nadia Imani. Thank you, Nat, for the insightful and for the amazing knowledge you have provided for us in this movie session. I hope to stay healthy and stay safe, Mbak Nadia.
Amin. Thank you so much, Kak Jergun, and also thank you for Alsa for the experience, and also for Bu Theresia for such an amazing knowledge. I learned a lot today. Thank you.
All right, now the committee will take a picture. For PDD committee, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Master of Ceremony. I will count down from 3, 2, 1. Thank you.
Thank you, Kak Nadia and Kak Jeremy Guntur. Last but not least, would like to give a certificate to our moderator for today, Queeney Sutanto. To Queeney and Irfan Daniel Putra, as the manager of Alsa Unplugged Volume 3 Project Officer, I'd like to invite you to reactivate your cameras. All right, thank you. To Irfan, the time is yours.
Thank you very much, Irfan, for the opportunity to become the moderator for today's Law Unplugged. And I do apologize in instances where there are some mistakes, and I have enjoyed our session today. Thank you very much also to the Law Unplugged Committee and to the speakers, Ibu Theresia and Nadia.
Thank you, Mbak Queenie and Irfan as well.
Sama-sama, Ibu. Happy to have you here.
Thank you to Queenie and Irfan. Now the committee will take a picture. For PDD committee, the time is yours.
Thank you, Master of Ceremony. Okay, I will count down from 3, 2, 1. Thank you.
All right, our next session is documentation. To all the committee, moderator, and speaker, would like to invite you to turn on your cameras. We'll wait for 1 minute.
I will start from slide 1. I will count down from 3, 2, 1. Okay, slide 2. I will count down from 3, 2, 1. Thank you.
Thank you, PDD committee. Well, then, ladies and gentlemen, I'm so sorry to say this, but we have now arrived at the end of this session. Thank you to all of the participants who have joined in our discussion for today. We also would like to say thank you very much to the Sandi Chumbatrika Partnership for sponsoring Alsa Unplugged Volume 3 for today. The next agenda will be hosted by me again, so see you at Legal English Discussion Unplugged Volume 3 on the next day. Once again, thank you for your participation and enthusiasm. Stay safe, stay healthy, and see you on the next day. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom. Om Santi, 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 Om. Namo Buddhaya. To inspire and to aspire. Alsa, always be one.